Okay, this is an attempt to memorialize my Shadowdark campaign that I've been running. Um, we're about 5 or 6 sessions deep right now, and that is over the course of probably 4 or 5 months of playing because unfortunately, both my wife and I, who are two members of our group, and our third member of our little triumvirate here, we have all three been very busy. Um, and also, my wife DMs a 5e campaign. So we have had a couple of sessions that could have otherwise gone to Shadowdark, but have gone to 5e. Really just who wants to run that week, who's ready to run that week, etc. So this is as much an attempt to help me remember what the hell is going on as it is to create any sort of artifact of the campaign, although that definitely does appeal to me. I think that sounds quite fun. So here we go. This is Shadowdark Campaign Diary 1. I'm going to do one video for each session we've done, going off memory, and it's very sparse notes at this point. Basically, what I did for this campaign was I created a sandbox based on a map that's in a book of hex maps that I have, Fantasy World Maps for Game Master. I think I ordered it off Amazon. Honestly, the line of products that is from is not great. I think it's pretty obviously AI or procedurally randomly generated, and whether it's the world maps, which is the collection of hex maps, or they have one that is dungeons, one that's caves, one that's villages. They were some of the first products that I got when getting into this hobby a couple years ago, and I've since come to see how many superior products there are out there. You know, I don't want to yuck anybody's yum or, get on anybody's hustle, but whoever's making these things got pretty lucky that for some reason the algorithm chose them. I don't know what they did, but they're not great products, and I've since come to find many other more superior ones. Although I will say, this Fantasy World map, which just to give you a little sample here, that's a map. That's a map. That's what they all look like. Just terrain. There'll be a couple settlement icons and a couple skull icons on each map. You could use the skull icons for, use them to delineate dungeons, things like that, obviously. We'll see how well it picks up in the video, but this is the map we are currently running. And we started, I believe, should be a little village over here in the corner. Oh yeah, right up here. This is the village I had them start at. Over the course of the first session or two, they made their way over to this little village, which I delineated the road to with a little dotted line there. So basically, I made a sandbox on that map where fleshed out bare minimum details, essentially, for the town they were starting in and the larger town that they were heading to. Though I didn't really bother to get much done for the larger town, because I knew that in the first session they weren't going to get there because they had a couple of adventure hooks in the first village. And my players are, cooperative. If you drop a line in front of them, they will generally follow it because they understand we're playing a game. So I think in the first town, I based it... I knew this was before Kelsey Dion had released the player's guide to the Western Reaches, at least the PDF form of it, which just came out at the time of this recording, maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we didn't have a map. It might be shared in the Discord, but I'm not part of the Shadowdark Discord. We didn't have a proper map of the Western Reaches, but I, in my head, was imagining that this area that they were playing in is sort of at the northern end, like northwestern coast of the area. This was partially because before this first session, we did a gauntlet, and I used the official from the official resources, the one that's located in Curse Scroll 3. I think it's called Midnight Sun. The one that's set up in, I think the Isles of Andric is what it's called, the Viking northern region. So I figured it made sense geographically if they were going to start up there to be playing around in a northern area. Also maybe wanted to give them the opportunity, if they were really feeling the sort of Viking thing, then it wouldn't be a far, or it would be an easily justifiable transition from this northern area that I was starting them in back up to the Frozen Isles, the Isles of Andric, Curse Scroll 3 area. So a couple of hooks for them in the starting village. Most of the prep that I did before this first session was building the sandbox in terms of dropping different adventures on different hexes of the map, and then building rumors and hooks for those adventures that I could drop in front of the players while they are in town gathering information. You know how it goes. OSR style, which I'm relatively new to, so I wanted to run a campaign that was as close to the true OSR style as a noob like myself can achieve. I also wanted to see how much my players enjoy the sort of more procedurally generated, what do they call that when it's, basically the play to find out philosophy, you know? Where what's going on at the table dictates where the story goes. There is a term for this. I just cannot remember it right now for the life of me. But yeah, I basically wanted to have a blank slate. You actually use the roll tables and things like that from the book, the official Shadowdark book, and just see what happens. Kind of like, Skyrim style. Like when you start a game of Skyrim, you're usually just, hey, on this run, I want to build a house. I want to establish a home base. I want to loot some dungeons. I want to get rich. I want to get sweet armor, sweet loot. This is what I was sort of imagining for Shadowdark. And then as things develop, I can develop any hooks that they are biting on that they seem interested in. Just like in Skyrim, how you have the ongoing civil war, and the main plot involving, what the hell's going on with all these ancient dragons reanimating. You can engage with those things, or you can just not. The difference in a tabletop game like Shadowdark, at least the way I'm going to run it, is that these larger plots that the players may or may not engage in, they will progress, whether the players are interested in them or not. I think that makes sense. I think that's interesting for a world. I think it'll give them a sense of verisimilitude, to use the ever-present word in the OSR circles. And it will, I think it just wouldn't make much sense, especially from how my group is used to playing, that something would just remain static in a way that works in a video game where, oh, this terrible, huge thing is happening in the world, but you're not engaging with it, so don't worry. It'll just remain in this basic state if and until the players decide to do anything about it. I just don't think that works. I think most people who play TTRPGs would probably agree with that, though everybody has different styles. So back to what actually happened in the first session. My two players, and for anybody who's wondering, like, oh, two players, that sounds like a very small group, might be some problems inherent with it. It is small, obviously. I think there are some problems inherent with having only two people. For example, I think sometimes, in a weird way, it can create more difficulties for the GM. In the sense that there isn't as much sort of self-fueling content that the players create on their own for themselves. Like, I hear a lot of people talk about how, oh, my group will argue over this for 45 minutes. And it takes them half an hour to make any kind of decision. And during that time, I can find out what's going on next, or I can prepare the next couple rooms that I know they're going into, things like that. When you only have two people, it's less likely that conversations will go on that long, that role play, social scenarios will sort of develop this life of their own where they just keep going and going and going. Although, don't get me wrong, it happens, especially when me as the GM is the third person who, and I have, I do maybe derail things sometimes myself with my own role playing. I tend to just go with it for as long as they want to go with it. But other than that, I think playing with two people it's a lot of fun. It's kind of got like a buddy cop dynamic, whereas instead of sort of a big group of adventurers, it's a partnership. Like, think of what's that movie with, who is it, like The Rock and Kevin Hart, or Starsky and Hutch, the other guys with Will Ferrell and Mark Wahlberg. It's kind of got that dynamic, just these two goofballs who like each other, don't like each other, get along. My wife tends to play the sort of loot goblin, borderline, not quite a murder hobo, but needs to be motivated by enlightened self-interest, aka greed. And my buddy tends to be very into the role play, and generally speaking seems to want good at heart characters, motivated by doing good. So it creates a funny tension between the two of them, where my loot goblin wife, her characters will they'll get over losses pretty quickly. They don't sweat it too much if an NPC that they've all been talking to for many sessions goes down. My buddy's characters tend to sort of look at them sideways, look at them askance. Now, they were starting in a village. I think I called it Last Watch. That was a name I pulled out of the Shadowdark book. What the hell did I even have going on there? This was quite a while ago at this point. In interest of brevity, I'm just going to remember the hooks. They learned about a man and woman who had a sick daughter. They had been previously the people of this village and the other nearby village, or more like a large town in the other case. But there was a woman in the woods, sort of ambiguous as to who she is, what she is, some kind of like medicine woman. Obviously, anybody with a background in these types of games is like, oh, medicine woman in the woods, hag. I didn't really have that in mind for this woman, but she previously would trade poultices, healing potions, things like that with the villagers in exchange for money, things of value. And in the last few attempts to make contact with this woman in the woods, they have not been able to find her. Where previously they would simply go out into the woods, call out her name, and eventually she would show up. They've not been able to recently. So, into the woods, figure out what's up with this lady, what's going on. This one was a bit further away. This also taught me an important lesson about where you place things on the map in these sandbox style campaigns. Where if you put something near the players, they're going to go to that first. Especially if it's directionally in the same direction as other things. So it's like you give them two quests, which this is what I did. I gave them two quests that were both going in the same direction. Because really there was only one way to go, because you were on the far western coastline. And I want them to move towards the larger town. They had two quests. One was further away than the other, but basically in the same direction. And of course, obviously, in hindsight, they went to the closer one. Again, especially because it was on the way to anything else. And I've seen this dynamic continue as the campaign has gone on. That if you put something close to them, expect that they're going to go to it. So if you want them to go to something, if you see something that you think is cool, put it near them. The quest that was closer to them was... Where did I pull it out of? I pulled it out of... I think it's Dark Visions? Oh, it's up here somewhere. Yeah. This guy. These are not ads or anything. I have mixed feelings about some of these products. Honestly, this one kind of mixed feelings about. It's worth getting, I think, but... It was this adventure. Oh, this one. The Cultist's Wake, though, I think that is amusingly enough an example of why I have somewhat a mixed review of this product. Because look here, you can see right here, in Cultist's Wake, at the back here. The Cultist's Wake. That's the problem. That's kind of the problem with this product specifically. There's a lot of just things that don't match up. One part of the book references something else, and it just gives you an incorrect page number. There's a lot of typos. In one of the larger adventures that's in the zine that has the third adventure completing the first two that are in this book, there's just big chunks that are reproduced from earlier parts of this book in that zine that are just incorrect, that are not supposed to be there, that were placed where they're not supposed to be. So I don't know what the hell happened with the editing there. Like, honestly, these people, there's a lot about them that I like a lot, and in their design, especially their like layout and formatting and stuff. But like, get your shit together with the editing, dude. Like, I don't know what's going on there. Anyway, this isn't a product review. So that adventure in Cultist's Wake is about going down into a temple underground that's been recently unearthed. Local farmers complaining about the fields flooding. And then investigating that leads you to this sunken temple that for some reason is flooding. And then you get there, you see some indications that there's been other people there recently, some strange activity. I think one of the hooks mentions like hearing some chanting, some strange voices. I think I dropped that one in front of them as well when they were talking to the actual farmer. And so they went there first, basically like kind of on their way to the other town that they were going to use as their base to go investigate this medicine woman thing. I had the farmer be like kind of a dick, kind of a crank, maybe a little weird, dirty, kind of a hoarder type guy. Not very pleasant. Usually I make farmers very like salt of the earth, like we're all the like, we're the simple good people. All these people in the towns are, oh, they got their schemes and whatnot. So I wanted to switch things up and just make this guy kind of an asshole for no reason. So they talk to him. They go to the place. It's very close by. I think the weather was terrible. I was using one of the weather rules that Kelsey had released. She revised it when she put out the new Western Reaches stuff. But just rolling for weather every day, it's not that important. But I like to do it. It's fun. Adds more verisimilitude, believability. So, and also it's cool. It's cool when it's pouring rain, thunder, and lightning, and they're going down into dungeons, So they go down into this dungeon, pretty standard fare. Like there's some cultists down there. There's bones laying on the floor that will, of course, reanimate after the players have interacted with a thing or two or simply walked into the room. So, pretty typical stuff they go through here. They clear out some skeletons, some cultists. They get to the final room. I think the boss, little mini boss of this place, was a wight. And one of my players was a priest. Oh, I should probably mention, they had a third companion with them because in their carousing check that they made after their gauntlet adventure, the result they rolled was that they gained an ally. I think it just said ally. I'm not sure. I know there are specific allies in that results table, but I believe I just rolled up a random character and it turned out to be a fighter. A dex fighter, which is kind of weird. This person probably would have been a thief if my wife wasn't already playing a thief. But she ended up being a ranged fighter with the stats she got. It's, as the campaign has gone on, this character's constantly laughed at because she is the fighter of the group. She has the most HP, I think, and all she does is use her bow from the back line. But she's very good with it, and she does a lot of damage. So they're grateful to have her. And I gave them that ally. I wasn't sure how to rule that result. Like, oh, they have an ally. Does that mean they literally have an NPC in their party that goes along with them? Or just, somebody who will help them out? But because there's only 2 players, and this is Shadowdark, and this is their first time playing and my first time running, I did not want them to get wiped by the first thing that they encountered. So I said, yes, absolutely, you guys should have at least a third companion. So our ranger elf fighter, who does not really fight, she ranges, accompanied the 2 of them on this journey. Once they reach the wight, the final boss, my one player, who is a cleric, successfully hit Turn Undead, and I believe enemies make a charisma save for Turn Undead in Shadowdark. The wight failed it. They took out the other couple goons that were in the room, and then this wight, which was also wearing I think it's called the Wraith Chain from the Shadowdark core book, which is +1 mithril chainmail that once a day can negate an attack that hits you. Very anticlimactic because it failed its Turn Undead save, and it ended up just sort of bouncing back and forth off the walls of this room. That was one of those situations where I was like, okay, well, we could sit here and have you guys roll attacks for 5 rounds until we finally kill this thing. But why don't we just say you guys kill it? So they do all that. I think there was a decent amount of loot in this place for a level 1 intro dungeon. I was just running it out of the book, basically. Also, maybe I'm just kind of generous with XP, but especially in the very low levels of Shadowdark, I want them to progress fairly quickly, without just sort of zooming them through, because I do want them to experience the lower levels. But, a 5th level Shadowdark character is what? a third level D&D character, maybe like a third level Shadowdark character. It's like a first level D&D character. So I want them to at least get to like, second, third level fairly quickly. So like if we find something that's like, 30 gold pieces or something like that, I give 1 XP for that. I don't know what other people do. I also, like the Wraith Chain, for example, the plus one Mithril Chainmail armor. I gave them 3 XP for that. Seems right to me, going out of the core rulebook treasure section. So I believe they got enough from this adventure and from their carousing roll that they did after the gauntlet, that they were able to level up to level 2 off the treasure they got in this adventure. They ended up clearing it out, solving the flooding problem. They stayed the night with the cranky, weird farmer in his shack while it poured rain and thundered outside. And then the next day, they made it to the nearby town named Galena. I don't remember where I got that name. Just straight up don't remember. Might have been out of the Shadowdark book. They ended their session. The way I rule it is that you have to get treasure back to a town or village or some kind of safe haven in order to get the XP for it. So they get back. Boom, here's your XP. They leveled up to level 2. They caroused. In the course of this carousing, they gained another ally based just off their rolls on the table, a priest ally. So I gave them, each player now has 1 NPC that they're controlling. I control them from a roleplay standpoint, and if they try to make them do something insane in combat, like sacrifice their lives so that the rest of the party can run, maybe for that character that would be appropriate. But if it's not, and they're trying to have them do crazy things, I would step in and veto and say, like, hey, that's still a character. You don't own them. You don't run them. They're not going to do that. But I let them run them in combat. So each of my 2 players now has a NPC that they're running. So they're kind of two-handing 2 characters, at least from a combat standpoint. Which I'm fine with because, again, Shadowdark characters are quite simple, quite easy to run. And this game is very, at least in comparison to 5e, it's very deadly. And that was where we left the first session. In the town of Galena, larger town, having leveled up and having gained a priest ally.